I know we're all excited to be here with you, and you know what, I was thinking about this panel, and I think for most of us, like we kind of grew up through marketing, right? We grew up in the times of, there was the sales representative, right? And we had some detail aides, and then we got into DTC, and then this thing came of digital. And I still remember, so I've been with Kim for 20 years now, and on that first year, because we were, a couple nights ago, I was doing stuff on my laptop, and Kim was sitting next to me, and she was reading, and I said, we're coming up on our 20th anniversary, and 20 years ago, this is exactly what we were doing, that you were reading, and you know what I was figuring out? The internet, became big. And I said to myself, I better jump on this damn thing, right? Because life is just going to pass by. So I'll tell you what, guys, I've discovered it was DOS at the time, right? And AOL, and you know that ding, ding, then you would connect, but right? And so I figured all this stuff out, and I think because of doing that 20 years ago, I have just been so much in love with trends and technology and how we communicate, and I think that's the same is true here. And so how cool that we're spending this time, and most of us have been in roles of big, change and all this stuff, like who the hell isn't, right? So we just want to talk about where we're at, real world stuff. Okay, ready? Oh, okay, so it's going to be one-sided. Is that what's going to happen here? Is that how we're going to roll? Come on. All right. I want to first talk about, so you know what I like to do is tell people, I told these guys, these are our topics, and then shake it up and actually don't cover those topics.
Great.
So in general, they're what I said, right? But I just wanted to highlight something here. So J&J Strong. So I was looking at this today. You guys have seen this too. Okay, so this is, as we look past, this was 2011. So the past 5 years, J&J stock. So it's up, right, almost 97%, right? That's huge. So, okay, you ready? This is lightning round, just real quickly, because we all know how boring panels can be, right? Of So let's not do that. So what we're going to do is you look at that stock and you'd say, what we're doing right at J&J.
New leadership.
New leadership. Say a little bit more about that.
Alex, well, I can speak to mine. Alex, Sandy, Jorge, huge difference.
So great. Awesome.
Last time I was here.
Awesome. What do you think?
Innovation.
Innovation. Say a little more.
In pharma, we're changing so much about the business model. We're trying a ton of different things. Try, kill it if it doesn't work, build on it if it does.
Yeah.
Just Stuart McGuinn and all the different ideas of what to do and how to touch, healthy engagements, how we take different parts of J&J and fit it to the pharma sector.
Awesome. What do you think, Juan-Jose?
No, same. I mean, the stock price reflects the expectation regarding our future growth. And what the market is saying is that whether it is in pharmaceuticals, medical devices, or consumer, the market is expecting us to do much better. And that's behind all the investment we're doing on innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I have to say, I am concerned about that. Yeah. Very concerned, because it's very difficult to transform a company that is doing so well right now. We can be very comfortable thinking that there is really no need to reinvent the business where we are in. And actually, the more you look at this presentation, the more you reflect on our business model and the way we make money and our relevance, and you can quickly see how it will reduce.
Yeah, so there's good things, right? Good foundation, a lot of good stuff going on, but the idea of comfort, it doesn't exist. So I want to take us back to something. Relevancy, okay? We all hear that word, how do we stay relevant, right? So if we look at, I actually looked up business relevancy today, and this business cat came up. Have you seen this cat before? So, because I like to fancy myself as being on top of stuff, right? Hey, did you see that thing on whatever? And I like to be the first one out, right? Yeah, duh, that was yesterday, right? So I looked this up, and I'm like, business cat? So I started probing, because that's just what I do. I get caught up in stuff, right? And so then I see this, right? So there's all these business cats, but I didn't know that. But what I did know, what's behind there, right? Radio Shack. Who's been to talking about relevancy? So business cats in, Radio Shack out. Take a look at this. Okay, did you know that only 71 companies remain today from the original 1955 Fortune 500 list? Did you know that? Oh yeah, So the but wait, yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that yesterday. So right. So when you look at it, look at stuff like Polaroid, kind of still hanging out a little bit though, right? But just hanging by a thread. What happened to Hummer? Right? CompUSA, Saab, Life, GM, FAO Schwartz. FAO Schwartz, I get. Like, did you ever buy something there? You did? Who did? You must be rich, because I want to know, are you rich? No, so you remember you'd go in there and there'd be this big giraffe and you'd look and it'd be like $3,000 and you'd say, the hell affords that? So let's talk about business relevancy. All right, how do we ensure relevancy today? Juan-Jose.
Value. Our relevance is tied to the value that we offer in the marketplace. If your value becomes something which is a commodity, then you capture much less. And that's why when we look at our business model, we end up on the product side of the chain, then we will be the equivalent to hard work in high tech, which is a very low margin, very commodity driven, and actually the value is in software. That's why one of the presenters talk about data. And actually the one who owns and capture and control data is king. And that's the same for us. Our relevancy depends on our ability to evolve from products into solutions and data.
Yeah, what do you think, Kat?
I'm going to give a bit of a consumer
Yeah.
perspective on it. I think we have a lot of legacy brands that sort of teeter on a relevancy issue. You've got J-Baby, Tylenol, Listerine, long-standing, some of them 100-year-old brands. And if you look out there and you consider where their threats are coming from, it's not coming from Procter, it's not coming from Unilever, it's coming from little niche brands or businesses that can easily enter the marketplace, don't have the complexities that we deal with, and they typically will stand for something that's very meaningful, mostly to millennials. And suddenly, you're obsoleted. And so a lot of what, from my perspective, it's got to be about thinking small. And some of it is we can achieve through acquisition of small businesses like NeoStrata or OGX, some of the more recent acquisitions that we've made that really hit that target. But some of it is on the bigger brands, how do you think small and how do you address that particular consumer segment who is very, very eager to obsolete sort of the establishment.
Yeah. So you've worked with all different kind of customers, right? And in your current role in farm. So if you think about this idea, hyper-segmentation, personalization, then you've got scale and, this idea of broader value. What do you think?
I think it's customer intimacy, which kind of assumes both of your comments. If we can know our customer better and better, and sometimes for a big corporation, if we know them better than they know themselves, they're as siloed and segmented as anybody. We can actually find a solution that is valuable to them and meaning to them, even sometimes they can't see it themselves. But that intimacy, and I choose that word purposely because when you're intimate with a friend, you can go, Amy, you really do that. You blink when you talk, when you get nervous. And you kind of go, yeah, that's what intimacy is. You know somebody so well that you can reflect back to them on what they know but can't see in themselves in the moment. And I think when you have that kind of intimacy, you can identify those needs. And we're doing that with patients. We're trying to do that now with the healthcare marketplace that's changing so much. And we've kind of said, if we don't get in there now while they're trying to figure it out, we're going to be on the outside looking in on this whole new black box. That, we knew the old market cold, we understood how everybody played. Now all the financial dynamics are different, and if we aren't in there and intimate with them and figuring it out, we're going to be the people standing out going, wow, I'm filing for bankruptcy on Polaroid.
Yeah. Amy will never blink again.
I know, I'm sorry. I could actually read your name tag.
I realize that. So
if I may, there is a question regarding how Johnson & Johnson remains relevant. But there is another very important question, which is how each of us remain relevant. And I would say that is as important because it's very difficult to lead an organization going forward if you don't have some good level of understanding regarding the opportunities that technology will provide and how you should leverage that either for a new business model or what capabilities do you need to build or how do you need to deploy resources. And this is very important because as a generation, that's a challenge that we have. And if any of you look at some of these things and are not very clear or do not really understand what are the implications for us, I would say the first step is to make sure that you go back to what you used to do when you were younger, which is to sit and learn and to invest time and to try to develop a better understanding and then reflect and bring it into the company. And between you guys, you manage the largest brands, the largest businesses. Most of the decisions and ideas and plans will come from this group, from nowhere else. And that's why I think it is very important that there is a company, but there is also a personal agenda behind all of this.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about career stuff like that at the end, but it's a good reminder in this idea of what we're going to talk next, because they're related. It didn't come up. I thought it was going to come up, but I want to talk about this next. Maybe. All right, we're moving on. There we go. Insight, right? As we talk, Juan-Jose talked a little bit about being the eternal student, but the idea of insight. And I saw this, again, doing my, little internet search today. And who doesn't love Einstein, right? He says things so simply. And the idea of question everything. And he says, I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. I think insight is one of the greatest gifts. You can't really force it, right? Because it's just a genuine desire to want to know, to want to figure out. So let me ask you, right? How do we generate insight?
Well, insight to me is more about the why of the why of the why. So when you go to a customer and he says, I need you to give me, another $1 million in rebates, and you're going to go, why? Because I got a budget to meet. And you go, well, why? And, well, my boss said, that's my goal. Well, why? Well, then you find out, and I'm going to use United Healthcare, they lost $200 million on the exchanges. Okay, when we understood that, we said, well, we don't want to give it on these 3 products, but we could probably give it on more of our generic products. And so if you get to the why of the why of the why, people are doing things and you understand the customer and what's driving them bigger organizationally, I think you could get to a better answer for them, but also a better answer for us, so it doesn't expose us. So to me, it's insights are between the facts. It's the underneath, kind of the light that's trying to get through on things. But you kind of have to stand back. Those pictures where if you stand back and you see the woman or you see the flower. It's really having that ability to go back and forth between facts and insights till you really understand the why in the picture.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Kathy, what do you think? And try to disagree with something.
Try to disagree with
try
something.
to do with something here, so we shake it up a little bit.
So I think the way I think about this is that for all the information that you took in today about all these new capabilities, it's like crazy amount of information. Everything's changing. Can't predict anything. I hate hearing things like you're not in control of your business anymore. But with all of that happening, the thing that gives me comfort is that the thing that hasn't changed is that insight is the foundation of any demand generation plan. And really great insight. It always has been, probably always will be. And I think the good news is we have better data, more ways to mine insights and be much more accurate about it. But I also think that sometimes this is the thing we sort of take for granted. And I always call these garden variety insights that I think are, it's an easy mistake to make and it's not very inspired, and we always have to be watching out for it. And I'll give an example from a category I know well. This is a made-up example. I know Manoj is in the room. This is not your stuff. Never would be. But if you take pain, for example, and you think of a classic consumer or patient insight about pain is that I have stress and I'm busy and pain gets in my way and I need you to resolve it for me so that I can get on with my busy and stressful life. There's nothing inaccurate about that. There's nothing about that that's not right. It has no uniqueness at all. As a matter of fact, you can use that insight and drop it in most categories in one way or another and come to the same conclusion. And so for me, it's that you have to tease out the uniqueness. When I think about pain, I'll use pain for an example. I'm making this up, but it's a lonely experience. When you're in pain, you're kind of separate from the world, and you're eager to rejoin the world. There's a different way to get at this, it's more meaningful, more ownable, more differentiated. And so, I would just caution that we should never, whenever you have something either from an agency or something your team has developed that looks like garden variety insight, I would go back and sharpen the pencil.
That's good. That's good. Juan-Jose.
I mean, they say that 40 years from now, in a world where artificial intelligence have advanced significantly, what will be the role of the managers in a corporation? And the conclusion was that our role will be to ask the right questions. So I do agree in terms of the why. And I do think there is this balance in terms of what we as the human race bring, our creativity and imagination, our understanding of human nature, but also combined with data and all the things that data will bring. And for us as a group, as a challenge, the development of a data analytics function, our investment, our understanding in terms of what is possible to capture, and with that information, what does it mean to the way we do business or go to market or develop new products or campaigns. And when was the last time that you guys sat and looked at your data team? They tend to be fragmented across the company. They tend to be alone. Very rarely they get a chance to meet with the senior team and talk about the things they could do for the company. And yet, in most of the advanced sectors, it's a war for data talent. If you have someone that has significant expertise in algorithms, those people are the equivalent to what was healthcare economics in farm or digital marketing in consumer. So that's also something that I think is important for us to consider.
Yep. I also want to bring up the concept of humility, because oftentimes, right, like all of us, we go to the grocery store. Do we go with a calculator? No, right? Do we think, can I get, ice cream and meat or eggs? We don't think about that, right? We have several pairs of shoes. We have all this, all these things that when we look around the world of if we look at average, what people struggle with. And I think one of my biggest passions, at this point in my career is the notion of the privilege to serve, and that nobody owes us anything. That's something I think we, in our 20s, that we start to learn. We're like, hey, I should have, and you're like, yeah, it's not going to happen, right? That whatever we have, you have to work for it. So this idea of the privilege to serve and the idea of humility, of saying they're actually not our customers, they're not ours. Every day, we have to earn them. And if we thought about that as a company, if we thought about that with that eagerness that, you remember all those companies I showed you, and they're out of business. Like if you take Blockbuster, what happened, right? I used to have Funkin' Wagnall encyclopedias because we couldn't afford Britannica. So what happened to, you'd get them at the grocery store, with the purchase of $2, you'd get a book, and at some point, I think they went out of business before we had the whole library. But the Britannica, right? So the Britannica, what happened there? There was an arrogance. And you know what? During the McNeil time, if I looked at my 5 years there, it first started with talking to customers who said we were predictably arrogant, right? Amy, no, several of you were there. Predictably arrogant. So let's just talk about that for a second. Are we still predictably arrogant?
I wouldn't say that we're predictably arrogant. I think especially pharma. I'm only new to J&J the last 2 years, so my experience has been that. But I think given what Janssen went through probably 5-10 years ago, it gave a humbleness to the organization that I live on today as a new person, that we could be right back there with a dearth of products if we aren't diligent. And so I think it allows the people in pharma to live into the strategy of how they allocate resources and how the passion to keep driving the sales and never get complacent, because it was such a painful experience to have to downsize and let family members go. And the culture here at J&J is so embracing as a family that people still talk about the pain. When I've brought up change, you and I were talking about this before, there was so much caution about, how we handle the people in the change to make sure they don't. So I don't see that as part of J&J culture in the division that I live with. From a predictability standpoint, I see us reaching out in different ways, but I think we could reach out farther and be more on the forefront of different ideas in the marketplace. Some of our businesses are, and some of them I think are fast followers. Yeah. And I think we have the resources and the mental creativity here, especially when you look at JHI and health and wellness and some of the unique capabilities that nobody else has. Tap on that creativity to find different answers. Don't always look within yourself, look at different markets for different ideas. Okay. Sometimes when you're always looking at yourself, you lose sight of what's possible when you look at another market or a different group. They changed, they evolved the wheel differently, and you could take a parallel tack.
Kathy.
Yeah, so I'm leading the company that's under consent decree. And so there's, I left the company in 2009, about 9 months or so before the whole, recall started to roll in, and came back right after the certificate of conformance was received for all the plants. My impression of everything is that it's a humiliating experience. So when it comes to humility, we rode that wave. There's a lot of caution now from a culture standpoint, a lot of caution in a company, and understandably. Yeah. They've been heads down for 5 years, working through a corrective action and remediation plan, and very, very worried about any kind of misstep going forward. Probably couldn't be more compliant if we tried at this point. And with that comes now the need, which I would say is it's not the opposite side of the coin of humility, but I will say we have to compete. Yeah. We have to get back in there. We have to get back in there and get number one in a number of the categories we're in. We have every right to compete in the marketplace. We have an extremely high level of compliance. We need an equally high level of competitiveness, and I think it's, we're at that pivotal point where, it's go time. But I think that lesson has been learned, and it's not compliant or competitive, it's both full speed.
Yeah, good. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that because I do think in some areas we might be a little bit arrogant. But, for example, one of the things that I like about Johnson & Johnson is our purpose and our values, and the fact that we do try to do the best things for patients and mothers and fathers and doctors and nurses. And I do think that is a core strength for us, especially as we move over the next 40 years. I like that very much. I also like our history. There was a generation that one day decided to take our business internationally, or that went through First and Second World War, or that decided that Janssen could be a major biotech player, or that one day decided that we could be one of the largest OTC players globally, or that built our skincare business, or that created markets in medical devices. We have an incredible history. I think for me, going forward, and going back to the point of arrogance, is whether we get too comfortable, because there are some things that we miss. We were one of the first ones with Baby Center. We should have rolling it out much faster. Today, we should have the equivalent of 10 baby centers in other categories around the world. We were the largest player in surgery. We should have been the first one in robotics. It cannot be that most of our competitors have robotics offerings, and we are just about to launch ours. And I do think this is important as the pace of change accelerates, how much more externally focused we will need to be to make sure that we do understand what are opportunities and continue to adapt and evolve. And that's where the arrogance could represent a risk for us.
Fully intended, right? But it's how we show up when we do it our way. And I do think we have a major, major, major opportunity to turn the matrix on its side so that we're purpose-driven versus functional, et cetera, driven, because we're still struggling with that. And to me, that's where the urgency needs to be, is for us to really keep driving towards that purpose, not just thinking about it, but actioning towards that. That was good. All right. Big and fast, okay? So if we think about, right, because we all know, and I think, Kathy, you talked about it, right, this emergence of these smaller companies. They're like, guns a-blazing, and while we're mapping out all different kind of processes and stuff, maybe they're in someone's basement, right, or some big warehouse stuff, and they're moving fast. So how do we combine those things about being big and fast? What gets in the way of that first? Lightning rod.
Corporate rituals.
Corporate rituals.
Multi-approvals.
Multi-approvals.
I'm sorry, it's just there are so many things that you could talk about.
I'm going to do 2 rounds. I'm doing 2 rounds.
Okay.
But I...
Lightning round.
It's true. It's true that we are big, but there are many areas where we have proven that we can move fast.
No, what stands in the way? We're doing barriers first.
I would say that we lose the main objective of why we are here. And I love very much that Janssen expression, patients are waiting.
Okay.
I mean, from the time of the crisis of Ebola to the time we're bringing it to market.
So that's good. I'm coming back around to the positive, okay? Because you know what? I do like to look like challenge in its face. What are those things so that we can really, and then we can put it in. But I do think it's also a cultural thing that we want to get to the positive too fast. So idea moose on the table, put it on the table, put the whatever. We got to embrace that. That's how you get better. What else stands in the way?
Consensus.
Okay.
Fear.
All right. So let's talk about... Okay.
He doesn't want to play.
So he doesn't want to play. All right. So okay. Let's talk about though what we can do. Okay. So what steps can we take to make sure that we are more agile, that we're faster, right? Now.
No, listen. I have a problem with that because I refuse to accept this notion that we cannot move fast when I see in many areas that we are indeed moving fast.
Yep.
At the Biosynthesis in the US, we are a very large company, but there are many things that we can do much better. And I do think in terms of consensus, we don't need 20 people in the room to decide. There are many things that we can optimize. We can leverage technology to get approvals. Yeah. We can make sure that we actually kill the things which are not working so we can focus our resources on the ones that will have the highest impact. But none of these things are neither difficult or out of our control. And because I see companies and teams and units that can move fast, I do believe that at the end of the day, it's a matter of leadership. And this idea that Johnson & Johnson overwhelmed me is something that I cannot accept because we are Johnson & Johnson. And I have seen very strong leaders, you including, that can make the company move fast. And therefore, it is within us to do it.
Let's talk about how to get that done, because we did a lot of research in medical device, and one of the big things where people say, you know what, I feel encumbered. So the actual term that we have, we talk about now is that we have to unleash the organization, right? Unleash the capabilities that we have, unleash ourselves from too many processes, et cetera. So from a practical standpoint, and all of you guys have done it, what's something that you've done to increase the speed, to unleash maybe your organization? Right? Because I'm totally with you. Who has to change this is us. So let's talk about something you've done. No one's ever going to want to be on a panel with me.
One is you got to be explicit about permission. Yeah. 2, I think you have to be explicit about risk and failure. 3, I think you have to contain it. So you have to be in it together with your people. Yeah. I think you got to focus it, you got to target it, you got to ring fence it a little. And you got to give a deadline. Nothing happens in life if you don't have a deadline, because I can always get to it later. It's not the most important thing. I think those are probably the big driving factor to getting people. Put them in a little bit of a bubble so they don't have that fear. They have a little bit of resources, but they have to come back to you in a certain period of time with something.
Yeah. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, so I left J&J 6 years ago, went to a small agile company, and then I came back. And it was a little bit like deer in the headlights coming back into a big, and it got more complicated in that 6 years in addition. And there are a lot of things in my head about complexity, but I'm going to tell you the one thing that's my biggest pet peeve, and it's PowerPoint. And I think there's stuff that all of us as leaders can do. It is a corporate ritual in this corporation to take our wonderfully talented young people, and when they come in with ideas and they want to build things and they want to problem solve and they want to be creative, and they get molded into the corporate ritual of the perfect PowerPoint deck. And then they sit in not in an office anymore, they sit in a space, And they create a deck, they send it up, comes back with edits, it gets sent up again. Probably the first edits got redone back to the way it was before. And who said Microsoft defines the way we work? Because Microsoft came up with this piece of software, and we're slaves to it. And I'm not saying that it's not practical, that you don't have to have information, because we do. But the common practice of let's sit across the table from each other, and actually talk to each other about something we want to get done, versus all of us turn toward the screen and get numbed and through these mind-numbing 50-page decks, which, I mean, it's pretty much a lot of our lives is sitting, for hours, going through this. And I know I say that a little bit as an exaggeration, but I do think every leader has it in them to look at particularly what our millennial employees are doing, because they're the people who do most of this. And there is an ability to get a little more plain spoken, a little more trimmed down. It's okay if you don't have 100% of the answers. If it's good enough, you go. And that's the talent that is going to propel the future. And if you really look at what they're doing, in all honesty, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Let's talk about straight talk for a second, okay?
That one's straight?
That was straight. That was straight talk. So, but, that's no matter what sector I'm in, whatever, and all of us have moved around. That's one thing, J&J Nice, right? So J&J Nice, and we struggle with that thing of like saying, I believe this, without feeling like somehow we're betraying something or someone or whatever. How can we live into this thing? Because I always say, if you care, you're going to actually say what's on your mind, right? So, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think courage is something that I would say is scarce within Johnson & Johnson. If there is something I would love to change in terms of the culture, is to be more courageous. How many times we see a proposal that we know the answer should be no, and we ask them for more data or more information. How many times we have conceded on an idea which was superior to another one just because of consensus. How many times there has been a talent in front of us and we haven't told them, listen, first of all, you are not a top talent. Actually, you have these two issues, and unless you address them, you will never be able to get where you want to go. That requires courage. And one of the reasons why we don't have that, is because we are prioritizing ourselves above anybody else. The reason why we don't tell that team no is because we want that team to like us. The reason why we don't tell that team member that he has development needs is because we want him to like us. We are at no point actually putting the interests of them or the company ahead of our interests. And because it is a matter of selfishness, it's a matter that we can indeed change. Many teams will prefer you to tell them the truth and give them a decision and why, rather than keep delaying them or asking them to go through another 3 rounds. Any talent will actually prefer a feedback that is focused and thoughtful on the areas they need to improve, rather than a high-level assessment that doesn't match what will be discussed the following day in succession planning. I think we can do much better. And I would say, again, that's something within us to modify.
Let's talk about challenging up. How do you do it?
I think you have to, a couple things. One is I would build on what was said. So I understand that point of view. Here are the things that I see that lead me to a different decision. What is it you're seeing? So acknowledging that there is a thought process and a validity. One thing, I had an old boss that just said, I didn't believe you all the time when he didn't like something. And I actually went to him and said, do you think I lied to you? And he's like, why would you say that? And I said, because every time we have a conversation, you say, I don't believe you. And I said, I'm not lying to you. I'm not making stuff up. We may not agree. And he told me years later, he goes, I never did that again. But so I think when you challenge up, you have to bring logic and data and acknowledge that there's multiple perspectives in a very courteous way, or ask questions in a seeking to know perspective. Like, why, Denise? I'm not seeing it that way. What makes you say that? Help me understand. I would like to learn more. So, and I came from an organization that it was sport to not be nice, to be challenging, and the more blood, the better. So J&J was a real learning curve of why people weren't actually talking and maybe why I was offending some people. So it's, I'm not quite how to explain that in that, but it is really different and it is not every place.
Kathy, what do you think?
I do think we are a culture of consensus, but I do see from the EC, MC level, I do see leaders being rewarded for courage, and I do see leaders being rewarded for pushing back. And I think that there are techniques, there are ways to do it that's a little less, confrontational, a little less aggressive, But if I ever get put in a situation where I'm sitting there with, with my boss and it's a room full of people, and this just happened the other day, he's, I don't agree, I will say, can I disagree? And what is he going to say? No. So he'll say, he just kind of backs up, takes a deep breath, and then he'll listen. Just give yourself the couple little tools that isn't like blowing them over, because some of that is just common courtesy. But I genuinely don't see, or maybe I'm just fortunate, but I genuinely don't see that issue in terms of managing up. I think we have a lot of leaders at the top now who are dying to find courageous leaders who have a point of view.
Great. Can I add? Please. I think as a courageous leader yourself, you have to have the humility and the open door to let it happen. The other thing is I ask lots of questions. I'm an engineer, so I'm a data person. I build up. I let people know that. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. It's not because I don't believe you or I don't trust you, but for me to put it all together and learn it, I need more data than maybe you do. And it's maybe understanding that different people are top down and bottom up and that we need different things, but having that open discussion and letting your people disagree and be humble about it at least more than 50% of the time.
Excellent, thank you. So, okay, we've got a full minute because I want to take any questions from you guys. Best career advice someone gave you, or good career advice?
To take risks. No career has been built, no memorable career has been built without taking risks. If you don't go to roles that you are not qualified for, where you are unsure whether you are going to be successful, where there is no combination of fear and excitement, then it's probably the wrong position for you, the wrong opportunity. If you want to take a conservative, measured, realistic approach to your career, you are going to have an average one. And I think times also pass too fast for that to be your objective on something where you invest a good portion of your life. So risk would be my...
Very good, thank you. Yeah. What do you think?
Do what you love and you'll be great at it. And that'll carry you far, and you'll find that will tumble into avenues that you didn't expect within what's your passion. And if you're passionate about something, you obviously will do a great job at it because of your interest.
Very good.
I would just add patience. It's a lot of us sometimes have a vision in our head of the steps that we think that we need to take to get it wherever it is we want to go. And sometimes you have to have the sort of personal patience to take a sideways move, to learn a little more, maybe take an assignment on behalf of the corporation that might not have been in your very best interest, but it's in the interest of the corporation. And all those things are remembered, but it's not typical anymore to have a progressive straight up path anymore, and some good old fashioned patience is good.
It's very good. Mine would be careers are a series of ups and downs. Don't get too excited when you're up here and think and then when you're down, right, it's like don't wear that jacket either. So you know what, resiliency there, but to realize it's not often talked about, but the idea of careers and that success are values and resiliency. Those are my thoughts. Okay, can we take a couple questions? If you have them, which I hope you do. Question 1. Okay, someone back there. They were just actually doing, I know that wasn't you, right?
She was stretching.
I know, I just couldn't help it though. So who's got a question? Yeah, thank you.
Quick one to any of the three of you. If you have the opportunity to change the sector, which sector do you choose and why?
Have an opportunity to do what?
To
Change the sector.
Change sectors.
Oh, move into a different sector.
Yeah.
Okay.
And why?
So I'm a consumer girl, have always been a consumer girl. If I were going to change sectors, I would change to, I'm just changing my mind while I was about to answer this question. I think I'd probably go pharma. Not because of the great run pharma's on either, but because it's so completely different. 55 years old, if I'm going to do something different, I'm going to do something wildly different. So I would, med device is closer to consumer. I'd probably do pharma just to have a wild ride.
Okay. Looking good, girl. That's what I'm saying. I could say that because I'm 56, and we look good. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I did most of my career in consumer. Now I work in medical devices. I will go to farm because I've never been there.
Very good.
So I'm farm through and through. I would go to device because consumer scares me. You never know what these people will do in the different generations. Healthcare is, it used to be rational. I don't know if it's rational anymore.
Very good. Well, I think you guys know, I've been in farm probably most of my career, but 2 times at J&J, 2 times medical device, and 5 years in consumer. And guess what? You know, there's something awesome in each of the sectors, and there's definitely a similarity because the idea of a customer is and you know how we understand you know the idea of serving and customers, it's very similar. You know, certainly there are new things to learn, but they're all wonderful. What else? Thank you for that question. One more, or you want me to sit down? Are we good?
No, she's looking at the mic.
It's good. Who's?
What advice would you give to someone who has come into your organization and less than a year? Should I repeat it?
Less than a year ago, you came to the organization?
Yes. What advice would you give to someone who's new to the organization and any pearls to just get off the ground running and succeed?
Let's start with you.
Since I'm the newbie.
Yeah.
You're a boomerang. How long have you been here?
10 years.
10 years. Okay, great. So I've only been here 2 years. I would say the one thing I learned is meet as many people as you can, understand what they do. Ask questions, ask them what they think of your department, what more you could do. I think the biggest thing you could do is really understand the people of J&J because so much more is done by relationships. Everybody knows everybody, even as big as this company is. Oh, I know somebody in device. I know somebody in consumer. We can call them. And you want to tap into that network to be really effective. Plus, people here base projects with the people they want to work with. And I've had peers say, I do business with the people I like. I don't do business with an orange box on an org chart. So I want to know who those people are. And that was probably the best advice that I had, was be very conscious of that.
Kathy?
Yeah, so probably the first thing I would do if I wanted to broadly understand the organization and meet a lot of people, I'd find a cause. J&J has 1,000 causes, lots of cross-organizational groups that it's the fastest way to meet people cross-sector and sort of understand how it all works. I'd be doing that.
Okay, Juan-Jose.
No, I mean, I agree with what you are saying, but just in the spirit of being a little bit challenging, I will advise you to focus on being the best talent and best performer at whatever you are doing. Because I see a lot of people spending a lot of time networking and so forth. But at the core, if they are average, they are not going to get opportunities to go cross-sector or to go to other geographies. The system works if you are a top talent and a top performer. So put all your focus there. Now, once you get there, of course, in the process, try to meet people, try to understand how the organization works and so forth. But at the core, you have to establish a reputation as someone that can deliver that which other people cannot.
That's good. Well, Amy's blinking again, so I think we're out of time. So you guys, we'd love to spend more time with you, but thanks for giving us this time. And I really want to thank these 3 awesome leaders and people for giving us their insights and for shaking it up a bit. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, yeah. Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So we're about to, towards the end of the sessions, and I will be introducing our closing speaker for this afternoon. Allison joined Johnson & Johnson from the Coca-Cola Company, where she held a variety of executive positions in both the U.S. and Canada, and most recently was Senior Vice President for Marketing for North America. She was awarded a number of recognitions, including Marketer of the Year by Ad Age, the Clio Brand Icon Award, and most recently in Cannes, Creative Marketer of the Year. So it is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce our closing speaker for this evening, J&J Consumer's first Chief Marketing Officer, right? Allison Lewis.
Thank you, Dennis. I don't know if I want to sit or stand after Denise's thing. I'll stand. Wow, what an amazing day. I only unfortunately got to listen to the last two groups, but the energy, the ability to provoke our thinking is what we need to do day in, day out. So thank you to everyone for that. So let's talk a little bit about Marketing Disrupted. I think it's a very appropriate title, and I will tell you that it's something I feel every day, and I hope all of you feel every day, which is our business has never been disrupted faster, and the only certainty we all face is that the pace of disruption and change will only accelerate. That is the certainty we all know. And so as we think about the speakers today, I'm thinking that they opened your eyes. I'm thinking that some of them probably scared you. I'm thinking that it is a call to action in terms of how we make sure we are more externally focused and more focused on experimentation than ever before, because that is the only way to win. When I think about, Dr. Kraft, I think the Futures Company, IBM Watson, the exhibits you experienced at lunch, and Dr. Nguyen, I think you heard a lot about agility, and that's something that is a cultural capability in any organization that's required to meet the challenges and the pace of change. I talk a lot, and those of you from the consumer group, from almost my second month in, I talked about failing forward, because that is something that we have to be willing to do. And Kathy, wherever she is, talked a little bit about, risk aversion. But the reality is you can't be risk adverse in today's environment. I think, when I look at the consumer business, we are pushing that with sort of a mantra to be world's best. And I know that the other sectors also have their own way of framing up how they are going to lead the world. When we think about how we're getting people to think more externally and to be focused more externally, we have something we call the 4S model. And I think it's relevant to all of you, no matter where you sit. And it's about challenging our people to be better scientists, so really leveraging the data and insights that are out there like never before. To be better strategists, so making better choices. To be better story builders. So how do we actually connect the data, the insights, the strategic choice that we make to the actual patient or consumer, or professional or customer, no matter who you're talking to. And then lastly, the socialization, so to be socializers. So to be scientists, strategists, storytellers, and socializers. And the socializers is being in the places that we need to be in order to socialize and spread our story. So I think Michael Sneed talked a little bit about this morning being curious. And I think my invitation to you is very much along those same lines, which is, how do we all become students again? And don't we all want to be students? Many of us, including myself, often dream back to the days when I was on a campus like this, and all I really had to do all day long was learn, test things out through some tests, try again, and then eventually apply as we all went out into the workforce. That mindset is something that I think is so valuable in today's world of disruption. And I think what we have as an organization, and the reason that this is so powerful, is because we do have these three sectors, these three incredibly powerful sectors, some which scare some people, I guess consumer, the sector that I'm in. But, that means that we have, and Alex's challenges us every day, we have the science, we have the knowledge, and we have the people that are unlike any other organization. So how do we truly unleash that? And I think that was one of the reasons Dr. Kraft was so excited to come and speak to us today, because that is something that no one else has. And so again, be students again. That is my advice to you. So when we think about change, it's interesting to think about this day of the James Burke Awards has now become a day where it's a full day of marketing celebration. And we're here with the second Global Marketing Summit. And I think it's a great testament to trying new things. And so nothing could make me happier than in the role that I'm in to think that we spend a day celebrating marketing thanks to Jim Burke. When I think about trying new things, I think a great testament to the team that worked on this, and I'll talk about them in a second, but the fact that versus last year when we did our sort of innovation summit, this year we've gotten even more people to participate with 170 of you versus 108. But the new and really different thing is that we're live streaming to 1,000 people around the world in 20 different locations around the world. And in the spirit of the Netflix and always on demand, we also will have this on demand so that anyone in the organization, as long as you have a J&J ID, can access today, can access any speaker, and we can keep the power of this day going much more broadly. So I encourage all of you to use that. That's the MX platform that we've built that, again, all of you can have access to, and all of you can leverage the power of today to spread Marketing Disrupted. So the final thing I'll say before many of us head off to the James Burke Award is just a thank you, and to a bunch of people that are out there in the audience for making this happen. I think it's a great example of collaboration across our three sectors. Special call out to Holly Means in corporate. Where is Holly? There she is. CP Robinson, and I know CP was the project lead on this, again from corporate. I think he's way back there. Ryan Helzerman, who was the MX project lead. So where is Ryan? There he is, good green shirt. Robert Delgado, who made sure that this all actually ran smoothly, and the reason we can stream around the world without any glitches. That's amazing. So thank you, Robert. And finally, to Dennis, who is our MX lead overall. And I think when Michael and I were talking along with Holly and Dennis, we sort of said, hey, what if we leveraged some of these platforms and really used it to scale much more broadly across our three sectors in the spirit of what Alex wants us all to do, which is leverage the unique power that we have as an organization. And so finally, I'll just close with something that I think you mentioned this morning, Dennis, which is today is the world premiere of our TrendScope 2.0, which is a great way to keep us all externally focused. TrendScope is something we've done in consumer for the past, I think, 3 or 4 years. We are now scaling it cross-sector because the trends are relevant to all of us. They shouldn't be kept in a box of consumer only. So that's done by the Futurist Company for us every year. All of you have access to that, and I think that allows us to keep being a student. So thank you to everyone for today. Thank you for attending. Thank you all those out there in the ether listening in, and here's to marketing. Let's be great. Thank you.
Thanks to Allison for those wonderful closing remarks, I think, to really bring the day in full circle. I know if you are like me, your mind is simmering with new ideas, new knowledge. How do I think about this? A bit overwhelming, but an excitement. And let's commit to carrying that as we leave here. I want to thank all of you, both those in the room as well as those on the webcast, for your engagement. It is really critical that we continue these conversations as a company moving forward. How are we going to capitalize on these opportunities for J&J? And these are not future, these are now. And I think Dr. Kraft really painted that picture there here, and each one of the speakers really carried that through. I really want to add thanks for all those who made it possible. Allison touched on a few key folks, but an event like this, I think for anyone that has done event planning, it takes a village literally to do. I mean, we had wonderful speakers and exhibitors and our leaders panel. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. They were phenomenal. I also would like to thank our event team. We had wonderful sponsors. Allison and Michael definitely challenged us, and I think from beginning to end and from conception was about 4 months. So I think a very special thanks to CP and Ryan in particular, who really rose to that challenge, really took it upon themselves, not only secure some amazing speakers, but I think also work with an incredible team to bring this off across both corporate equity and partnerships, as well as across the Consumer Marketing Excellence Group, as well as our other sector planning leads. And Kevin and Marisa, you provide some very early guidance and then continue to champion this in your organization. So thanks to you both for all of that. We had a number of folks coordinating. You've seen some of the interns, and I think they made sure that we got here on time and kept us moving, and that's very important for something like this. And then a special thanks to our viewing site leads. I think doing something like this remotely requires people on the other end to be willing to pull that through, and we couldn't have done this without you. So thank you very much. And you can see the sites that we are either webcasting or we will rebroadcast to around the world. Amazing. And lastly, a special thanks to our production team. You made all of this possible. You made it seamless, and so really thank you. With that, I would say next is we want your feedback. If you haven't already received it, you will in very short order. A survey coming through CVent, and that is going both to those folks in the room as well as those that are either watching live webcast or rebroadcast. We desperately want your feedback. Let us know what you thought worked incredibly well. Let us know places that we can improve so we can build that in and enhance next year's program. Allison mentioned we will be posting all of the presentations. Those will go up on the Consumer Marketing Exchange. We will send a link out by the end of this week, so you can look for that. And certainly, if any questions, feel free to reach out to CP and Ryan or to Tanya or Robert, and we can get those handled. Lastly, you have 10 minutes for any last-minute walkthroughs through the exhibits, and I would say we are going to close those down at 4:30 because we have the James E. Burke Marketing Awards taking place with a sharp start at 5. So please, it's only a 5-minute walk. Just across Rockefeller Road, there is a large glass-paneled building that is the Rutgers Business School, and that's where the awards ceremony will take place this evening. Again, we're going to start sharply at 5. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.